All right, and shalom, shalom, shalom. This is Deacon Ernest James coming out of Durham, North Carolina, King James Bible University. And today's teaching that I will be bringing forth is entitled, An Idle Soul Shall Suffer Hunger. So today, my brothers and sisters, we're going to be looking at this idle soul. So we have to understand that someone that's idle, meaning this is being slothful, meaning that we're being lazy. And if we're being lazy and we sitting there and we don't want to put in any work on a consistent basis, and we're not showing a consistent devotion and dedication to the word of God, then that's going to automatically cause us to be in a state of want and lacking nourishment, but not just physically, but we're talking about for one's soul, meaning our spirits will begin to be in want of knowledge. This will automatically happen due to a neglect of one's spiritual duties and obligations. This is actually one of the biggest reasons why we can have a stunt in our own spiritual growth due to this type of behavior. Because a lot of times we can sit there and we don't want any responsibilities on us and the obligations that we have to hold to. A lot of times we want to be fit, just be fed things to us without having to put in the necessary work for ourselves. But we have to understand that we have to make our calling and our election sure. So the only way that we can do that is if we are producing fruits to provide in our basket. But if we're being sluggards, if we're being lazy individuals because we don't want to have to make the necessary changes in our lives in order for us to grow, and we want to sit there and stay stagnant, it's going to cause us to be barren and unfruitful. So this idleness is a condition of the mind. It's an infirmity that can take hold of us very easily if we're not careful. And it's an adversary. It's an enemy of us that we have to cast down and destroy. So we must understand the dangers and the consequences of having a slothful spirit and what types of steps that we can take to overcome this. So with that, we're going to go ahead and hop right into this lesson. So we're going to start right here in Amos chapter 3. We're going to start in the book of Amos, chapter 3, starting at verse 1, and we're going to take it down to verse 3. And it says, "Hear this word that the Spirit of God has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family, which I brought up from the land of Egypt," so from the house of bondage, saying, "You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities," so for all your acts of sins. Verse 3, he says, "Can two walk together? So can two live together except they be agreed?" So that's the question he's asking us. So we have to understand that JEHOVAH is the one who brought us up out of bondage, out of servitude to the flesh, to be servants unto him. But we can already see right here from the jump that we have an issue here, because this word, as he said, was spoken against us. So it was spoken in opposition to us, because JEHOVAH is in opposition to the flesh. That's why he's saying it in this way. So all these desires and these ways of men have to be destroyed. So he's going to chasten us and correct us for our ways that we can be joined to him. So he's asking us the question, can two walk together except they be agreed? No, because it's impossible for us to be joined to JEHOVAH and him to be dwelling with us and in us if we still doing things according to the flesh. So we can't serve him in that way. So now we're going to go over here to 2 Corinthians. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 6. And we're going to take it from, we're going to hit verse 15 and verse 16. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 15 and verse 16. And it says, and what concord, meaning what agreement, have Christ with Belial, with wickedness? Or what part have he that believeth with an infidel, with an unbeliever? Verse 16. And what agreement have the temple of God with idols? So what agreement have the temple of God with these abominations? For ye are the temple of the living God. As God have said, I will dwell in them and walk in them. So he's saying he's going to live in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. So since we are the temple of the living God, we supposed to be his servants. We supposed to be living unto him. Then there shouldn't be any other thing in our temples that's defiling us, because we can see here that Christ has no agreement with wickedness or darkness. So if we sitting there still holding on to these things of the flesh, Christ has no agreement with that. So he can't dwell in a body that's not in agreement with his ways. Matter of fact, this just came to me, so I'll just pull this up here. This wasn't in the teaching, but I'm going to put this here so we can even see that based on what was just said. So we're going to hit Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, and we're going to hit verse 3 down to verse 5. And he tell us right here, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 3 down to verse 5. And it says, for froward thoughts separate from God, and his power, when it is tried, reproveth. So he's going to correct the unwise. For into a malicious soul, wisdom shall not enter, full thought, nor dwell in the body that is subject to sin. So that's what we was talking about. JEHOVAH, his spirit, his wisdom is not going to dwell in a body that's not in agreement with his ways. So if we're subject to sin, if we're still subject to the things of the flesh, the things of this world, and how we see and how we want to do things, wisdom can't dwell there. Wisdom can't dwell in that body. Verse 5, for the Holy Spirit of discipline will flee deceit and remove from thoughts that are without understanding, and will not abide when unrighteousness cometh in. So it can't dwell there. This is clear. So now let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke chapter 20. Luke chapter 20. And now we're going to hit verse 38. He tells us right here. He says, for he is not a God. So he's not a guide of the dead. However, of the living, for all live unto him. So God is not the God of the dead. He's not the God of the ones that's living according to the flesh. So the only way we can live unto him is if we are keeping his precepts and keeping his instructions. As he tell us over here, when we look at Psalms, we're going to look at Psalms chapter 119, and we're going to hit verse 93. He tell us right here in Psalms chapter 119 and verse 93. And it says, I will never forget thy precepts, for with them thou hast quickened me. So his precepts, his instructions, those the thing that has quickened us. It's what's made us alive. It's revived us. It's what's made us living. So this is how we have to live unto JEHOVAH, by keeping his precepts and forgetting them not. That's what's going to give us life and keeps us living. However, if we not living unto JEHOVAH, then we dead. And because the dead don't work. The dead doesn't do anything because we not diligently taking heed to his instructions. So we being slack. We slacking off and not working and not putting in the work. This is why we have an issue, because Jehovah is not the God of the dead. He's not the God of the flesh. So we can't serve God in the flesh, because he tells us the only way we can serve him is in this way, as we see right here, as we go to John chapter 4. John chapter 4 and verse 24. John chapter 4 verse 24, and it says, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must, meaning it's commanded. We must worship him in spirit and in truth, because this is the only way. So the only way that we can worship God, meaning showing reverence and devotion to Jehovah, is in spirit and in truth. This is commanded. So that comes with what? That comes with obedience, dedication, devotion, and application of his word, following his commandments and his precepts. And we can't deviate from that at any point, because the moment we deviate from his instructions, that's when we start allowing our flesh to take back over. So the moment we start allowing our flesh to take back over, now we dying. When we let that happen, now we're defiling his temple, as he tells us right here. When we go over here, the 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and he tells us right here in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, we'll hit verse 16 and verse 17. He tells us, know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? Providing any man, any male or female, defile, so pollute the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is separated, is holy, which temple ye are. So as we seen this, this temple of God is us, and we defile it. How? By being transgressors and forgetting his precepts, by allowing ourselves to stay joined unto flesh when we should be joined unto Jehovah. So how is all this tied into being idle? How is all this tied into being slothful? Because an idle person isn't going to diligently put in the work on a consistent basis. They're going to do things how they want to do it and when they want to do it. They say things like, we sitting there saying things like, oh, well, I'm going to study, but I'll study when I feel like it. Oh, I'm going to do my work. I'm going to do my work, but I'll get to it when I get to it. We like to do it at the last minute, at the last second. See, this is what we do. Idle persons will sit there and wait to the last minute to do everything. And a lot of times won't even do the work at all, being lazy with no type of effort to put forth work into anything, but still sitting there always looking for handouts. See, this is the type of behavior that's defiled and is corrupted in the eyes of God. And we're going to see this. We're going to see exactly what this looks like. When we go over here to Sirach, we're going to hit Sirach chapter 22. We're going to hit verse 1 and verse 2. He tells right here, Sirach chapter 22, starting at verse 1. He says, a slothful man is compared to a filthy stone. So this filthy stone, meaning this filthy house, this filthy temple, and everyone will hiss him out to his disgrace. So when we sitting there being lazy and not putting in the work on a consistent basis, not doing our due diligence to serve Jehovah, that's a disgrace. That's a shame unto him, and it's contemptible. And we can even see this when we go over here to the spiritual dictionary, but we can even see how this is tying in when we look at this disgrace, because we see how this disgrace is a dishonor. It's a shame. But when we even look more at it, Let's get over here. We see it right here. It's a disgrace. It's contemptible. That's what it is. And then when we put in contemptible, we can't even see what this is tying to. We see what? Swine right there. When we go right here, we see what's contemptible. It's the swine. It's unclean. It's wretch. But we can even see right here for clarification what it says. Slothful. So that's what we look like. This is what we look like when we sit there and we don't want to do our due diligence and we don't want to put in the work. We just said swine. Being wretched. Being dirty. Filthy. This right here, it makes us 100% filthy when we hold on to that mindset. We can see it right here. He's telling us exactly what we look like when we being slothful, when we being lazy. This is what it is. So when we see verse 2 in Sirach chapter 22, verse 2, he says, a slothful man is compared to the filth of a dunghill. So this filthy habitation. And every man that takes it up will shake his hand. So this is what we don't want to be joined to. Being this idle, slothful person. This dirty and filthy way that we're living. So that's what it is. We just got to see it for what it is. Because we have to remember that swine, he don't consider anything. Matter of fact, we even go here. Because the fact that he compared it to it, we can even see. When we go to Leviticus chapter 11 and verse 7, he tell you right here. He said, and the swine, the contemptible, the unclean, the filthy, the slothful, though he divide a hoof, and be cloven footed, so he got divided desires, yet he cheweth not the cud. So he don't consider visions, dreams, and prophecies. He don't consider anything. He is unclean to you. So this is what we look like when we do this. Because that swine don't consider anything. He don't consider visions, dreams, prophecy, or any meditation. He only feeds on his fleshly desires. And that's what we look like when we decide that we just want to kick back and feed our flesh and not being servants of JEHOVAH. We don't want to dive deeper into the book and consider his prophecies and his dark sayings and his parables. We don't want to meditate on anything. We just want to sit here and kick back and lay back and do nothing and just be fed. But guess what? JEHOVAH is not going to dwell with an unclean person. We've seen that. He's making this clear. And as we can go over here, the Matthew, he tell us right here. When we go to Matthew chapter 7, when we go to Matthew chapter 7 and verse 6, he tells us right here. He says in Matthew chapter 7 verse 6, he says, give not that which is holy, so that which is separated unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, under their desires, and turn again and rend you. So we see what he's saying. So these pearls are these jewels. These are these gems. So the thing is, why should he give his jewels, his riches, his treasures of his word? Why should he give that to swine? Why should he give that to those of us that are unclean and being filthy? Why should he give these things, these treasures, these jewels? Why should he give those things to those of us that don't want to consider anything or put in any type of work? We just want to sit here and chill and kick back, but we want to sit there and eat grapes. We just want to be fed. We just want to be fed things, but we lazy. We just want somebody to give us something, but we don't want to put forth effort to learning anything. But we just looking at everything carnal. We're not gaining no type of understanding because we don't want to put forth no effort. We don't want to put forth no work. See, he's making this clear. Give not that which is holy to dogs, neither cast ye your pearls in the presence of swine. See, JEHOVAH is only going to reveal these things to those that are going to serve him faithfully in spirit and in truth, not to those of us who want to hold on to their own way of seeing things. So he's going to tell us something. When we go over here to, we're going to hit 1 Corinthians chapter 2. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. And we're going to hit verse 7 down to verse 9. And he telling us right here in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, starting at verse 7, going down to verse 9. And it says, however, we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom, which God ordained before the world unto our glory. Verse 8, which none of the princes of this world knew, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. Verse 9, but as it is written, I have not seen, so the understanding I have not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man, the things which God hath prepared for them that loved him. And we can even see right here, when he's telling us, when we go over here to Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 17. He telling you right here, Proverbs chapter 8, verse 17, he says, I love them, so I promise them that promise me, and those that seek me early shall find me. So JEHOVAH promises them that desire to seek him out, that has that true desire and that diligence, the search of his deeper truths. Those of us who do this is gonna sit there and we're gonna ask for understanding and clarity on things. You're gonna be sitting there seeking counsel and searching the scriptures daily. See, these are the ones that JEHOVAH is gonna reveal his knowledge unto. Not those of us that sit there and decide that we're gonna kick back and not do anything. See, those of us that choose to do that will suffer hunger, meaning our spirit is going to be lacking the nourishment that it needs to grow. And guess what? Rightfully so. Because we choose to do that. That's our own choices that we choose. Nobody made us do that but ourselves. Because we'll sit there and we choose to go against his instructions laid out for us in the Bible. See, these are the ones that he's not looking for. However, those that are truly desire after righteousness. He tells us when we go over here to Proverbs. We're going to hit Proverbs chapter 2. And now we're going to hit verse 4 and verse 5. Because he tells us right here. He says, if, so providing thou seekest her as silver and searchest for her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear, the desire of the Spirit of God, and find the knowledge of God. See, it's only when we take the initiative to seek out wisdom are those things revealed unto us. But we have to be willing to take that step, because if not, then we will only stay idle. We're going to stay in that same spot. We're going to stay in that same position. We're going to stay stagnant. We're not going to have any growth. And all we have then, we're just going to decay. And the wisdom that we have is just going to wither away. So we're going to pull this verse. We're going to pivot real quick. This wasn't in the teaching, but we're going to go to Matthew chapter 25. We're going to hit Matthew chapter 25 and verse 29. And he tells us right here. He says, for unto everyone that have shall be given, and he shall have abundance. So he's going to be continually growing in wisdom, because the ones that's going to be seeking out the knowledge is the ones that's going to have that abundance of those blessings. But from him that have not shall be taken away even that which he have. Because these are the ones that's idle. This is what he's talking about. The ones that's sitting there and not willing to seek out the knowledge, but want to stay in that same position, want to stay in that same spot that we comfortable in, and we not willing to grow. See, that's going to be taken away, even what we have. Then we're going to decay. Then we're going to lose whatever we have, and it's going to wither away. That's what's going to happen if we continue to sit there and want to stay in that same position that we're in. So now we're going to go back over here to 1 Corinthians chapter 2. And now we're going to hit verse 10 and verse 11. And it says, but God have revealed them unto us by his Spirit. For the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of God. Verse 11. For what man knoweth the things of God? Excuse me, you start that over. For what man knoweth the things of a man? Save, so only the spirit of man which is in him. Even so, the things of God knoweth no man, but the Spirit of God. See, no man, so no male or female, no flesh can know the things of God. Why? Because he's not the God of flesh. He's not the God of the dead. We seen that earlier. Matter of fact, we can even see this right here. When we go over here and we hit John chapter 5, we're going to hit John chapter 5 and let's see, verse 22. And he tells us this in John chapter 5 and verse 22. He says right here in verse 22, it says, for the Father, so for the Creator, judgeth, so he teacheth no man. However, have committed all judgment. So he committed all doctrines and teachings unto the Son, the servant, meaning the word of God. So it's the word that's going to teach us, but he's not dealing with flesh. So when we get back over here to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, now we hit verse 12 down to verse 14. And it says, now we have received not the spirit of the world, however, the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of God. Verse 13, which things also we speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teacheth, but which the Holy Ghost, the separated body, teacheth, comparing spiritual things with spiritual. Verse 14, but the natural man, so the carnal man, receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. So these things are spiritually discerned, so they're spiritually understood and comprehended. So these things that the Spirit of God teaches us are spiritually understood. That's why we always have to look at things spiritually. We can only compare spiritual things with spiritual things. But the natural man isn't going to do that because we want to hold on to our own wisdom, the things that we've learned of men and not of God. That's why we have an issue. And we don't want to let go of those things, but rather hold on to our own traditions and ways of thinking. So now we're going to go over here to, we're going to hit John. We're going to hit John chapter 8. So we're going to hit John chapter 8. And then we're going to hit verse 12. Verse 12 down to verse 15. And it says, John chapter 8, starting at verse 12. And it says, then spake JEHOVAH unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. This is Jehovah speaking. He that followeth me shall not live in darkness. So you're not going to live in blindness and no understanding, but shall have the light of life. The Pharisees therefore said unto him, now keep in mind these Pharisees and what they are. So these Pharisees, they teach the laws of the flesh. This is the natural man because they do everything according to the flesh. So they said, thou bearest record of thyself. Thy record is not true. You see, JEHOVAH answered and said unto them, though I bear record of myself, yet my record is true. For I know whence I came and whither I go. However, ye cannot tell whence I come and whither I go. Ye teach, so ye judge, ye teach after the flesh. I teach no man. So we see, so Jehovah don't teach after the flesh. He don't teach flesh. Everything in his book is spiritual. So that's the way that we have to learn. See, these Pharisees here had the issue because they were looking at things according to the flesh instead of paying attention to the words that was being spoken unto them. They were more focused on the vessel and not the understanding that it was the spirit of Jehovah speaking through this man. This is why a lot of us today will even have a hard time today, because we want to teach after the flesh and learn according to the ways of it and hold on to those things. We'll say, oh, well, that's just how I see it. I'm just going to look at it for what it is and how I see it. But basing it on a literal and carnal sense of seeing something. So people sit there and believe that this man came down from heaven. They believe that this man is God. They still want to stay in those buildings. People still want to sit here and read out of these false books and concordances, saying, I just need a resource to help me out so I can get an easier understanding of what I'm looking at. Because we lazy. We don't want to show any diligence to put in any work. We're just looking for an easy way out, and we actually defiling ourselves by going outside the scriptures, going to other things and thinking we're going to learn something from it, even after being told what the truth is. But we still will sit there and do it. We don't want to make changes. We don't want to make changes to our understanding to allow us to grow. And that's being idle, because we're not willing to sit there and learn the right way. We rather hold on to what we comfortable in. So we say stuff like, well, this is all I knew all my life, so that's just what I'm going to do. Okay, so when the truth comes to us, we supposed to change. We shouldn't be sitting there trying to waver back and forth in our heads, saying like, oh, well, I just think about it. I think about it. No, when we receive truth, when we receive instructions, we should be immediately trying to make changes in our lives. We should be making changes in our lives. This is what we should be doing, because he even tell us here, when we go over here to Acts, based on that, this is exactly what we should be doing. When we see this in Acts chapter 26 and verse 7, he tell us right here, he says, unto which promise our 12 tribes instantly serving God day and night hope to come. That's the only part I need, because that's what we're looking at. So this instantly is immediate. So as soon as we hear truth that's coming from the scriptures, we should be immediately making changes in our lives, not sitting there debating back and forth in our minds if we're going to do something or not. We can't do that. That's being idle. That's being slothful about it. And that's going to cause a stumbling block in one's spiritual growth when we do that. When we're not willing to change from our own vain traditions that we want to hold on to. So when we go over here to Mark chapter 7, we're going to hit Mark chapter 7. We're going to hit verse 7. We're going to hit Mark chapter 7, and we're going to hit verse 7 down to verse 9. He tells us right here, he says, howbeit, in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold to the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do. So we see right here, this washing of these pots and cups are these vessels. So we sitting there just trying to make our outward vessels look good, but inwardly we full of problems. Inwardly we full of issues, and we can even see, even clarify on that, what he's talking about when we go over here. We're going to hit Matthew right here. We're going to hit Matthew chapter 23, and we're going to hit Matthew chapter 23, and we're going to hit verse 25. We're going to hit verse 25 down to verse 28. He says right here, Matthew chapter 23, starting at verse 25, he says, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees. Remember, these are the ones that teach according to the flesh. They do everything according to the flesh. So see that. Hypocrites, for ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of exhortation and excess. Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and the platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, however, are within full of dead men bones and of all uncleanness. Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. So this is why we have the issue, because everything that they doing is according to the flesh, being self-righteous, trying to walk around all high and mighty, thinking you're the best thing walking around. And we can sit there and can see everything wrong with everybody else and what everybody else got going on, but not looking at our own issues from within. Many of us are like this. We do this all the time. We quick to see everybody else's problems and can point them out, but we're sluggards when it comes to seeing what we got going on, what we need to do to correct our actions. So we can sit there and look at ourselves in the mirror all day, and we can point out how good we look. Oh man, I look good, man, look at me. But not actually looking at the fact that we in flesh, we filthy, it's dirty, and we're not considering the reason why we even looking at our flesh anyways. Because we got issues that we need to fix with us, because we need to cleanse ourselves from within and not sitting there worrying about other things, because we have to understand that this flesh doesn't profit anything, because he even tells us that. When we go over here to John chapter 6, we hit John chapter 6. We go right here. John chapter 6 and verse 63. He tells us right here. He says, it is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So there's no profit in just focusing on beautifying one's flesh, one's outward appearance. But within, we'll do all that. But within, our spirit is malnourished and we suffering. So we rather learn things according to the flesh to please our own desires rather than making sure that our spirits are fed. This is why most people focus on the outward appearance. They go to those camp gatherings and these churches, saying, let me go put on my Sunday's best. Let me go put on my best suit and my best outfit. Then you got the camps that be out there dressed in these Power Ranger uniforms and wearing these spiked gauntlets and headbands like they about to go into some wrestling match. See, that's holding on to the traditions of men. That's what happens. Thinking because you dress in a certain type of way that makes you righteous. And it's far from it. Or even when people will come back here and just sit and saying, oh, well, I'm just going to show my face and I just want to be seen, but I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do any work. I just want to be seen. See, this is what we're talking about. We more focus on our flesh and how we look outwardly instead of focusing on the internal issues that we need to work out within ourselves and what we need to do, and learning what's required of us to learn according to Jehovah's commandments. That is what we should be focused on. That's why he said, the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God. So this carnal man is not going to receive wisdom because we so focused on our bodies and our appearances. We can go all day long feeding our flesh, whatever it is that we like to do to please ourselves. We can do that all day, every day, but won't sit there and consider. We don't want to chew the cud. We don't want to consider anything. We don't want to consider that within we full of issues, trying to live on the outside and not realizing that we dying on the inside. This is why we having the issue. So when we get back over here, the Mark chapter 7 on the right side of the screen, now we'll reiterate verse 7 and we'll take it down to verse 9. And he says, howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, so we put that to the side, ye hold the traditions of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do. Verse 9, and he said unto them, full well ye reject the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition. So this is what we want to do. We want to hold on to our own customs, our own practices and beliefs that we like to do because we reject knowledge. We refuse to accept truth and we want to hold on to our own way. Why? Because we don't want to do the work. We don't want no responsibility. We don't want to do what it takes to fulfill the instructions that JEHOVAH has given us. And those of us that do this will have to face the consequences for it. Because when we get over here, we're going to see what happens. When we go over here to Amos, we're going to hit Amos. Amos chapter 8. We're going to hit verse 11 and verse 12. He telling us right here, starting at verse 11, he says, behold, remember, the days come, saith the Lord God, so the Creator, Yahweh, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread. So he's not going to send a famine of doctrine, nor a thirst for water. So nor a thirst for knowledge. However, of hearing the words of the Spirit of God. And they shall wander from sea to sea. So they're going to wander from people to people, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Spirit of God, and shall not find it. Why? Because we want to hear and believe every other thing rather than the truth coming from JEHOVAH. So this famine is going to be in the land, meaning what? It's going to be in the people. This famine is a drought. It's a lack. This lack, this having no knowledge and having no understanding. This is what he's going to bring unto the people. But this is for those of us that want to be slack, that don't want to do the work. Because JEHOVAH provides his doctrine, he provides his wisdom and his knowledge. But guess what? If we don't want to hear, we don't want to listen, we don't want to obey, we don't want to perceive his instructions, then guess what? We're not going to be able to find it. Because we're going to hold on to what we want to hold on to. We're going to hold on to our own traditions because we want to be slack. We just want to sit back and do things how we want to do it. So that's why we're going to have the issue. So when we go over here to Isaiah chapter 29, we're going to have Isaiah chapter 29. We're going to hit verse 10 down to verse 14. He tells us right here. He says, for the Spirit of God have poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep. So let's see that. This spirit of deep sleep. This is what he said he's going to pour out. What he said? The spirit of what? Slothfulness. He's going to pour out this spirit of slothfulness, being slack, being idle. This is what we're talking about. This spirit of slothfulness, this deep sleep. He says, and have closed your eyes. So he's closed your understandings. The prophets and your rulers, the seers have he covered. Verse 11. And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed. So it's closed, it's shut. When men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. It's shut. Verse 12. And the book is delivered unto him that is not learned, saying, read this. Hey, understand this. Comprehend this. I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. Verse 13. Wherefore the Creator saith, For as much as this people draw near me with their mouth and with their lips do honor me, okay, we being hypocrites, however, have removed their heart far from me, and their fear, so their desire toward me is taught by the precept of men. Verse 14. Therefore, so for that reason, remember, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder. For the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid. So this is what we're talking about, because a lot of people have heard what the truth is, but will still sit there and stay straddling the fence, will still sit there and still want to hold on to whatever they was into before. We'll still sit there and do that. We'll say, well, I hear what you're saying, but I just don't know. So people will decide to reject truth of Jehovah's word and hold on to false teachings, holding on to the commandments of men and the carnal wisdom of this world, whereas no knowledge, but will still sit there and say that they're seeking Jehovah. So we'll worship God with our mouths. We'll show that devotion with our mouth, saying, "Oh, I just love the Lord so much. I just love God, this and that." But then our hearts, our desires will be somewhere else because we still want to hold on to what we want to hold on to. So this is what we do. So matter of fact, we're gonna go over here because this one just popped up. So when we're gonna go to Revelation. We're gonna go to Revelation chapter 22. Because when we want to sit there and still hold on to what we want to hold on to, we think that somebody's supposed to chase behind us. No. We want to hold on to what we want to hold on to, then we can stay right where we at. Because he tell us right here in Revelation chapter 22 and verse 11, he says, "He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy," which we seen these slothful, these lazy sluggards. So he that is filthy, let him be filthy still. So we can stay in that. If that's what we want to hold to, then stay right there. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. So that decision is up to us. If we want to sit there and whatever we want to hold to and be in, then stay there. So that's what we need to understand. Because we want to sit there and wander out the way, but then looking for something to happen when we get ourselves in trouble, and then we're gonna be out there suffering hunger. We're gonna be in need of lack of understanding, but then wondering why we got the issue. Because when we go over here to Proverbs chapter 21, starting at verse 16, and we're gonna hit verse 17, he tells us right here, Proverbs chapter 21, starting at verse 16, he says, what? The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. Verse 17, he that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man. So he's going to be destitute, lacking understanding. He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich. So whatever you got your faith in, whatever you got your trust in, because we rather have the pleasures of this world and prosperity that we can get here. But he's telling you right here, he that loveth pleasure. So if we love these pleasures of this world, all these things that we want to be into shall be poor. So we're going to be lacking understanding. We're going to be destitute of the truth. So we just can't come to the knowledge of the truth and think we're going to do things on our own time and how we like to see it. Oh, let me just go out here and live my life for a little bit. I want to live in this world first. I just want to live my life for a little bit. Then I'll serve God later when I'm ready. Nah, man. It don't work like that. You can't just do things like that how we want to do it. Because if we decide to wander out the way and go astray from Jehovah, then it's going to come with an issue. Because he already tell us right here, he'll give us right over to whatever we want to be into. He tell us in Romans chapter 1, we see it right here. In Romans chapter 1 and verse 28, he tells us right here. He says, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. So we see it right here. He'll give you right over to whatever you want to be into, because that's where our true desire is. So when we out there chasing the pleasures of this life, the further and further we're getting away from Jehovah. The more we sitting there entertaining ourselves with our own desires, the less we focusing on the Bible. And it's just going to build, and it's just going to get worse and worse. You could have started out going hard in this. You could have started out going hard, putting in the work, studying 2 to 3, 4 hours a day. Then you gradually finding yourself only studying for an hour, and then only for 30 minutes. And then eventually you going days and not even doing it at all. Why? Because we allow our pleasures that we want to do to overtake us, and allowing those things to become our main priority. We'll go backwards instead of forward. Oh man, I gotta, man, I know I gotta get to the lesson, but I gotta finish my TV show that I like. I'll get to the lesson later. Man, I know I need to study, but man, the football game coming on tonight. I gotta watch the game. That the Bible can wait. I gotta go out and party tonight. I gotta go out and have some fun. I can study later. This is what we'll do. Now remember, at the beginning of this lesson, he asked the question. Matter of fact, we'll go right back to it. We'll go right back to the verse, so we can always keep that fresh in our minds. When we go back over here to Amos, we just need this part right here. He asked us at the beginning of this lesson. He says, can two walk together except they be agreed? So he asked us this. So remember, we supposed to be the temple of God. Jehovah was supposed to be dwelling with us. We supposed to be joined to him. Jehovah, that's who we supposed to be walking and living with. Jehovah, living according to him. So how is it can Jehovah be with us and we sitting there doing things trying to walk opposite of him? See, when we decide to neglect our spiritual duties and obligations and put that on the back burner for our own desires, that's an agreement that we have made with ourselves. He ain't got nothing to do with that. We ain't made that agreement with him. We made that agreement with ourselves. But we think it's cool. We think it's okay. No, that's an agreement that we made between us and our flesh. That's why he said God gave them over to a reprobate mind, because that's what we want to be into. That's what we want to hold to. So go ahead, hold to it. And we can even see what this looks like. When we go over here, we're going to hit 2 Timothy chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3. And we're going to hit verse 2 down to verse 7. He tells right here, starting at verse 2, he says, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures. You see that? Lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. Verse 5, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women. So these spirits laden with sins, led away with direst lusts. Verse 7. And this is what's going to happen. Ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. So this is why we have an issue, because many of us struggle with these things, being prideful in our own self-righteous mindsets, because we just know that our way is right. We sitting there being boastful, being high-minded, being deceivers, having a form of godliness, just as the Pharisees. We just trying to appear righteous on the outside, but we doing everything according to the flesh, being hypocrites, saying one thing, but we sitting there doing another. And we sitting here wasting all our time on these things instead of learning how to get rid of this stuff. So we'll be given over to this type of behavior. Why? Because he already said he gonna send that deep sleep, that spirit of slothfulness, that slumber over those of us who do this, because we the ones that choose to be disobedient. And he tell us right here. Matter of fact, when we go over here, we're gonna hit Romans. Hit Romans chapter 11. And we're gonna hit verse 8 down to verse 10. He tells us right here. Romans chapter 11, starting at verse 8. He says, according as it is written, God have given them the spirit of slumber. And the spirit of slumber, this is this spiritual ignorance that we have. Eyes, understandings that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear unto this day. So unto this day. Verse 9. As David saith, so his beloved, let their table, so let their abundance be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. Verse 10. Let their understandings be darkened, that they may not see, and bow down their back always. So we need to understand, when we choose to reject truth and knowledge and hold on to the things of this world, those things become a stumbling block for us. These church buildings, these camps on the street corners, these other philosophies and doctrines out here, any belief that's contrary to the truth of JEHOVAH. All these things serve as a stumbling block to us. They're traps to draw us in. But if we sit in there and we like to be entertained by those things because we think it's cool, we say, oh, well, I can just listen just to see what they talking about. This is entertaining. This is fun. I like it. Okay, we like to sit there and surf around the internet looking at these other channels on YouTube and these people claiming that they're teaching Bible and listening to these other messages. This is what we do. Then he letting us know that the Most High is going to put that spirit of slumber upon them that want to hold on to these things. But we sitting here thinking it's a game, and he's telling us that he's going to send this strong delusion. We can even see when we even go over here, the 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11 and verse 12. He tells us right here, he says, and for this cause, God should send them strong delusion, this blindness and confusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Because that's what we want to hold to. We'll do these things, but then still wonder why it's so hard for us to get the truth. Why is it always confusion in our lives? But we love to please ourselves instead of holding on to the instructions of JEHOVAH. Because he even tells us right here what it is that we supposed to be doing, but when we don't do it, we have the issue. He tells us right here in Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 13. He tells us, starting in Isaiah 28 verse 13, he says, but the word of the Spirit of God was unto them, precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little, that they might go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken. Why? Because the truth then becomes a stumbling block to those that don't want to receive instructions. You have people they'll sit there and say, well, the way I read scripture is I'm just gonna read a verse up and a verse down so I can get the understanding, so I can get the context. This is what we say. Or I'm just gonna read the Bible just like any other book and read it carnally for what I see. But we see right here, he's telling us what the instructions are. It has to be precept upon precept. So if we refuse to go by these instructions, then we trying to understand scripture, we're going to be all over the place. We're going to be wrestling with it. It's going to be a stumbling block because we refuse to get the understanding. So we're going to hit something in 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 8. Matter of fact, he tell us, we're going to hit verse 7. We're going to hit 1 Peter chapter 2, starting at verse 7, then verse 8. And it says, verse 7, it says, unto you, therefore, which believe he is precious, but unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, the same is made the head of the corner, and a stone of stumbling, and a rock of offense, even to them which stumble at the word, being disobedient, whereunto also they were appointed. So this is why we have an issue, because we decide that we want to be disobedient. Oh, that's just how I see it. That's just how I understand it. We not willing to humble ourselves and learn. That's why we're gonna be sitting there wrestling with the understanding. Just as he tells us here. Now, these won't in the teaching, but they coming up, so we just gonna run them. He tell us here in 2 Peter chapter 3, as we see here in verse 15 and verse 16. He tell us right here in 2 Peter chapter 3, starting at verse 15. He says, and account that the long suffering of our Creator is salvation, even as our beloved brother Paul also according to the wisdom given unto him have written unto you, as also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable rest. So you're going to wrestle with it, as they do also in the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. So this is what's going to happen, because we sitting there and we don't want to follow the instructions that he's given us, as we seen earlier. But the word of the Spirit of God was unto them precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. We don't want to follow that. So then when we don't want to follow that, that becomes a stumbling block. And we're going to wrestle with it to our own destruction and be snared and be broken and taken. This is what happens. So now we're going to go over here. We're going to go over here to Proverbs. We're going to hit Proverbs chapter 13. Proverbs chapter 13. And we're going to hit verse 18. He tells us right here, Proverbs chapter 13, starting at verse 18. He says, poverty and shame. So this poverty is being deprived of knowledge and being destitute. And shame, this nakedness and disgrace, shall be to him that refuseth instruction. You see that? But he that regardeth reproof, so he that regardeth instruction and discipline shall be honored. So if we refusing instruction, he making it clear. Poverty is going to come to us when we refuse instruction. We don't want to humble ourselves and take correction and take rebuke. We don't want to change the way that we're looking at things, the way we're looking at scripture. We don't want to take correction. We don't want to look at things the right way like we should when we're receiving that reproof. So when we don't receive it, then we're going to receive poverty. We're going to receive a lack of understanding. This is why we're going to have the issue. So we have to understand that the Most High God, he made some things very clear to us that we must understand, that we must do daily. And we're going to see it right here. When we go over here, we're going to hit 2 Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2. And we see it right here. In verse 15, he tells us. In 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, he says, study. So we got to learn. We got to get understanding. So study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. So we got to learn this. We got to study. We got to put in work. So let's go to Baruch. We're going to hit Baruch chapter 3. Baruch chapter 3 and verse 14. He tells us right here. He says, learn where wisdom is, where is strength, where is understanding, that thou mayest know also where is length of days and life, where is the light of the eyes, the understandings and peace. So this is our life. This is how we're going to receive life. This is what we're talking about. So in order for us to do this, we got to be able to stay in the book consistently. But this is on a daily basis. This isn't a sometime thing. This isn't a I'll do it whenever I feel like it type of thing. It doesn't work like that. Because when we go over here to Sirach, chapter 6, Sirach chapter 6 and verse 37, he tells us right here, Sirach chapter 6, verse 37, he says, let thy mind be upon the ordinances of the Creator and meditate continually in his commandments, in his instructions. He shall establish thine heart and give thee wisdom at thy own desire. Because we have to understand, the more that we meditate, the more that we ponder on this word, the more that we consider what it is that we're looking at, the more understanding that we can be given. But the issue is when we don't want to take out the time to meditate. When he's telling us clearly right here that this is what we need to do. So when we refuse these instructions, then poverty will come upon us, because we sitting there, we see what he's telling us to do in the book, but when we still want to do it our own way, then that's when we gonna have the issues. So we can't refuse these instructions. We gotta take heed to these things and take them seriously. Because when we go over here to Proverbs chapter 8, we see right here, we're gonna hit verse 33 down to verse 36. He tells us right here, he says, hear instruction and be wise and refuse it not. So don't do that. Verse 34, blessed wisdom is given is the man that heareth me, so that obeyeth me. So we got to obey JEHOVAH, the wisdom from JEHOVAH, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. Verse 35, for whoso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Spirit of God. Verse 36, but he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death. So we see what he's saying. Because if we don't want to take heed to these instructions, we wronging our own selves. We wronging our souls. The more we stay being sluggards and putting off our business and our duties and obligation to learn, to the learning of this Bible, we do that. That's more and more that we starving our soul, but we feed in death. That's what we'll be doing. Because when we don't want to study, when we don't want to meditate, we sitting there missing out on lessons purposely because we want to please ourselves. Then all that's showing is that those of us who do this hate God. People might say, "Oh, well, I don't feel that way. That's not how I feel about it." Okay, it doesn't matter because it shows in our actions, in the things that we're doing when we decide to neglect our duties. Because we supposed to be observing and practicing these instructions. This is our main priority, and we won't. And when we don't do that, he letting us know. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death. So he making it clear to us when we sit there and we reject our duties and our responsibilities towards the word of God. He telling us exactly what it is we're doing when we do that. So now let's go over here to 1 John. 1 John chapter 2. 1 John chapter 2. And we're going to hit verse 3. 1 John chapter 2. And we're going to hit verse 3 down to verse 7. And he's telling us right here. Starting at verse 3. He says, "And hereby we do know that we know him, if so provided we keep his commandments. He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoso keepeth his commandments, but whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of God perfected," the promise of God. "Hereby know we that we are in him." Verse 6. "He that saith he abideth in him, himself also so to walk, even as he walked. Can two walk together unless they be agreed?" Remember that. So, brethren, verse 7, "I write no new commandment unto you, but an old commandment, which ye have heard from the beginning." The old commandment is the word which ye have heard from the beginning. And we can't even see when he even told us this from the beginning, what it is that we supposed to be doing. When we go over here to Exodus, we're going to go to Exodus chapter 16. We can't even see it. Like he been told us this. When we go over here to Exodus chapter 16, verse 4, he says, then said the Spirit of God unto Moses, remember, I will rain doctrine from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will live in my law or no. See, this is something that was instructed. This is something that was instructed to our forefathers from the beginning. So this isn't nothing different or unfamiliar to us, because the same thing he told them back then is the same thing we have to fulfill today, because it ain't nothing different. Because he said that he's going to rain bread. So he's going to bless us with this doctrine, that he's going to feed us through his pastors, through his feeders. And we're supposed to go out and gather a certain rate every day, every single day. But don't forget, as we going out and listening to these lessons, we got to still meditate on the things that are told to us every day. So that means we got to take notes. We got to be able to go back and study on the things that we have learned. But if we not taking no notes, then we not doing anything. It's a waste of time. We just sitting there and we not storing up anything in the storehouse, in our temples. We being idle. We not doing anything. But we sit there and say, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. Okay, but that's going to cause us to lose out on what we need. It's going to wither away because we can't be sitting here and taking these opportunities for granted. Because remember, JEHOVAH said he's going to rain knowledge every day. So we're going to be able to receive these spiritual teachings. So it has to come by the way of his feeders, which he already promised to us. When we see it right here in Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 15, he tells us right here, he says, and I will give you pastors, I will give you feeders according to mine heart, mine desire, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. So this is a gift unto us. But it's not, but the thing is, it's not about the man. It's about the fact that JEHOVAH has given us this opportunity to learn knowledge daily, to gain understanding on a daily basis. But we'll sit there and we'll take this stuff for granted like it's nothing. Because he even tell you right here, based on this, when we go to Sirach, we're going to see something in Sirach. Sirach chapter 8. We'll see something in Sirach chapter 8 and verse 9. He tell us right here. Actually, we're going to hit verse 8 and verse 9. So Sirach chapter 8, we're going to hit verse 8 and verse 9. And it says, despise not the discourse of the wise, but acquaint thyself with their proverbs. For of them thou shalt learn instruction, and how to serve great men with ease. Verse 9, miss not the discourse. Matter of fact, let's see that. So he's saying don't miss the discourse of the elders. So what is he telling us? Discourse, we see the teaching, the exhortation, the speech, the counsel. But we see this teaching, this exhortation. This is what he's talking about. So he's telling us, miss not the teachings of the elders, for they also learned of their fathers, of their teachers. And of them thou shalt learn understanding, and to give answer as need requireth. So this is how we're going to get understanding, by the way of these elders, these pastors that JEHOVAH is speaking through. And he's going to do this daily. He said, miss not the teachings. He letting us know, miss not this discourse of the elders. So if JEHOVAH is feeding us through one of these men daily, shoot, I don't care if it's 5 times a day. If it's in our power to be there, to gain the understanding and to get the knowledge that we need, we should be willing to get the understanding and learn, not sitting there putting it off like it's nothing. Oh, well, I don't know. I just get back to it. I don't really feel it. We can't do that, because when we do that, we really taking for granted what JEHOVAH is doing for us. And this isn't something that we should be doing. So we got to get out of this slothful, lazy behavior, because every opportunity that we get to receive wisdom is another opportunity for growth. And whatever we learn, we need to take that and go back and study it and meditate on it and even build upon it. This is what we need to do. Because he's telling us when we go over here, we're going to hit 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. We're going to hit verse 11 and verse 12. And he's telling us, he says, and that ye study to be quiet So we want to be quiet. He ain't saying quiet like being quiet, but he's telling us, let's look at quiet. So what? You see, eased, be relieved, comforted, rest. This is what we want. Study to be quiet, to be in peace and tranquility. This is what we want. So he said that you study to be quiet, to be in peace, to be comforted, and to do your own business and to work with your own hands, your own powers, as we commanded you. Verse 12, that ye may walk honestly, live honestly towards them that are without, and that ye may have lack of nothing. So he's making this clear. So this is what we got to do. So we seeing what it is that we need to do, because we need to show this diligence, this devotion and true effort towards putting in this work towards the kingdom of God, that we may find peace and tranquility in this word. That's the only way that we're going to get it, because there's no other way but through JEHOVAH. And so it's not like he keeping this from us. We keeping it from ourselves. When we decide to hold on to what we want to hold on to, when we decide to be rebellious and disobedient. So now we're going to hit Isaiah chapter 59. We're going to hit right here in verse 1 and verse 2, and then we'll jump down. Isaiah chapter 59, starting at verse 1. And it says, remember, the Spirit of God's hand, his power is not shortened, that it cannot save, neither his ear heavy, that it cannot hear. Verse 2, but however your iniquities, your acts of sins have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid his face from you, that he will not hear. So this is what we did. We separated ourselves, because it's not that the Spirit of God can't save, because we all know that he can heal and he can kill. Matter of fact, since I said it, might as well go to it. So we're going to hit Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 39. He telling us right here. Okay, it ain't like he can't do this. He tells us in Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 39, he says, see now that I, even I, am he, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. So the Spirit of God, he's the one that does all these things. The same God that's saying, he told us, he sent that strong delusion out upon those that want to be rebellious and disobedient towards him. That spirit of deep sleep, that spirit of slothfulness, the same one that he's saying that. But the thing is, the Spirit of God's power is not shortened, that it cannot save, but he can heal us with his word if we turn back to him and do what we need to do. But the issue is, because of our iniquities have separated between you, us, and our God, our sins have hid his face from us, that he will not hear. It's because of what we doing. It's because of our own actions. Our iniquities have separated us from God, because we choose not to keep his instructions. We already seen that it's instructed to us to gather this knowledge daily with a diligent effort to study and meditate. But when we decide or feel like we can take days off whenever we want to, then we willfully doing that against God. We sinning against him, because he gave us his commandment and his instructions on what we need to do. But we willfully deciding to go contrary. So from that point, that's on us. And then we have to pay then for the consequences of it. We seen earlier that if we sit there and reject truth and hold on to doing the pleasures of this world, where it lead us. So we don't want to sit there and have that strong delusion to come upon us, because we see right here when we go to verse Still in Isaiah chapter 59, we're going to hit verse 9 and verse 10. He tell you right here. He says, therefore, so for that reason is judgment, so doctrines and teachings is far from us. Neither doeth justice, righteousness overtake us. We wait for light, so we wait for understanding. But remember obscurity. For brightness, but we live in darkness, so we live in no understanding. We grope for the wall like the blind, and we grope as if we had no eyes, as if we had no understanding. We stumble at noonday as in the night. We are in desolate places as dead men. So this is serious. But a lot of this that's going on is due to the fact that we like to be wishy-washy. And all that means is we indecisive. We don't know what we want. Because matter of fact, he tell us something. We're gonna look at two places. So we're gonna go to Sirach. We're gonna go to Sirach chapter 33 and verse 2. Because he tell us, he says, a wise man hateth not the law. However, he that is a hypocrite therein is as a ship in a storm. Why? Because we're going to get tossed to and fro, being hypocrites, being unstable. Because we're not going to hold on to the instructions. We'll say we're going to hold on to those things. But then the next minute, we not. Just as he tell us over here, when we go to James. Being indecisive, being unstable. He tell us right here in James chapter 1. He tell us in verse 8. We see right here. He says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So this is why we have the issue. Because one minute we going hard for the truth, and then the next we not doing anything. That's unstable. We can't have that type of mindset. We can't have that mindset where we're going to go hard for the truth and we sitting there putting in the work and we just going hard. We just putting in work for a few weeks, for a couple months, or even for a year. Then all of a sudden we just get slack. Now we get weak, we get feeble, and we start being inconsistent. We can't be like that. That's being a hypocrite. That's unstable. We can't fall to that. And if we fall to that, then we're going to suffer hunger. We're going to suffer a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding. And we don't want to let that happen. Because he tell us something when we go to we're going to hit Sirach right here. We're going to hit Sirach chapter 27 and we'll hit verse 11. We want to see something right here. Sirach chapter 27 verse 11. He says, the discourse of a godly man is always with wisdom. That's a full thought. However, a fool, so the unwise, changeth as the moon. So we can see that the conversation, the discourse of a godly man is always with wisdom. It's just as the sun that you can see outside, because you can even see that sun goes up and goes down every day and it doesn't change. And it stays exactly the same way every day. It's shining bright every day, every week, every month, every year, and it don't change. It's going to be that same way because that's that light that's shining. That's the point. However, the fool is going to change as the moon, because we can even see how the moon goes through these different cycles. One day it looks one way, and then the next it's appearing another way. But that's how we are when we end up wandering. Because if we full of wisdom one day, and then over time that just continues to decrease, and then all of the suddenly it's not there no more. It's not present when we were just full of light. Then all of the suddenly it vanished. Why? Because we're not staying consistent due to a lack of devotion towards JEHOVAH. So let's hit Sirach right here. Sirach chapter 26. And we're going to hit verse 28. He tells us, Sirach chapter 26, verse 28. He says, there be two things that grieve my heart, and the third maketh me angry. A man of war that suffereth poverty, and men of understanding that are not set by, and one that returneth from righteousness to sin. The Creator prepareth such an one for the sword. So we see this. So this man of war that suffereth poverty. This is what we don't want to allow to happen, because we have to remember that we are at war, but we not with flesh and blood. Matter of fact, so what I'm saying is we can see this when we go to we're gonna go to Ephesians. We'll go to Ephesians chapter 6. We see what we're talking about, what we at war with. He tell us in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12, he tell us, he says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So we're not wrestling against that. That's not the thing. But however, against principalities, and these are these dominions and these authorities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness in this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So we in this war right now. We in this battle with what? We in this battle with this spirit of slothfulness. That's what we battling against. This slothful spirit that's trying to have dominion in our temples and our bodies, to try to weigh us down. That's what we warring against, and we got to fight this. This is what we're battling against, because this war, we're not battling this war with other people. This war is within ourselves, because we become our own worst enemies. We get in our own way. He tell us this when we go to James chapter 4. He tell us in verse 1 right here. James chapter 4 and verse 1, he says, from whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence, even of your lust, that war in your members? Because it's within us. We can see this when we go to Romans chapter 7, verse 20. He's breaking it down for us right here. Romans chapter 7, verse 20. We're going to take it from verse 20 down to verse 25. Romans chapter 7, verse 20 down to verse 25. And he tells us, he says, now, if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Verse 21, I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. It makes just so much sense, because you could be sitting there saying, man, look, in one mind, hey, I need to study. I need to put in this work. I need to be diligent. But then the other part of you just sitting there telling you, man, you good, you all right. Just kick back and chill for a little bit. It's a constant battle in your mind. This is what happens, because that evil is present there to try to draw us away from JEHOVAH. That's what it's doing. Verse 22, he said, for I delight in the law of God after the inward man. But however, I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. So all of this is clear. We in this struggle with this sin that's dwelling in us, this slothfulness, this conflict that's going on within our members. See, we want to do right. That's what we want. We want to do right, but that little voice that just keep popping up in your head, just telling you, oh nah, it's all right. Don't worry about it. You can miss out. One day ain't gonna hurt. It's okay. You good, man. You cool. It's gonna be okay. You ain't gotta study today. You good. See, that's how easy it is. That's how easy it is to get us. But we got to understand that one day can cost us a lifetime. So we got to keep that in mind. So now, let's go to Proverbs. We're going to hit Proverbs chapter 21. And we're going to hit verse 25. Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 25. And it says, the desire of the slothful killeth him, for his hands refuse the labor. So he letting us know right there, because that desire that we have to be that way, that's in us, will kill us. It's going to cause us a spiritual death and sever our understanding, separating us from truth, because we refuse to labor. We refuse to work and to strive towards righteousness. But he tells us right here when we go to 2 Thessalonians, he tells us in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse 10. Yep. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. We're going to hit verse 10 down to verse 12. Yep. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, starting at verse 10. And it says, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that providing any would not work, neither should he eat. So neither should he learn. So he's making this clear. He's making this really clear for us. If we sit there and don't want to put in work, then why should we learn? Why should we be able to reap the benefits and the blessings of wisdom from the scriptures and we not even doing the work to get it? That makes no sense. Because many of us right here, right now, like to sit back and eat grapes. But the thing is, we can sit there and we can go to our regular jobs daily and perform our daily tasks that we do in this world. We can sit there, we go out and we make our money so we can support ourselves and our family, to have food on our tables and clothes on our back and a place to stay. And that's all good, well, and fine, because that's what we should do. But the issue is, when it comes to the Bible, for some reason, we feel like all of a sudden that same thing doesn't apply to us there. But it's the same concept. So if you don't want to work, you don't eat. So if you don't want to labor for God's ministry, if we don't want to study and meditate and participate in the classes and in the lessons daily, then we don't want to learn. It's simple as that. Because we want to be broke spiritually. And if we broke, then we ain't going to have no covering. We ain't going to have no doctrine to fill our temples. We ain't going to have nowhere to stay. Because we're going to be separated from the truth, suffering poverty, this lack of nourishment. This is what's going to happen. So I ain't just sitting here just saying all this towards other people, trying to point other people out, because as I always say, what I'm speaking applies 100% to me. So I'm included in this, because this slothfulness, this laziness, this is one of my biggest struggles and enemy that I must face, as I'm sure many others have to. But we have to fight this fight. This is what we have to do. This is what we have to endure. We have to overcome this. So he tells us in verse 11, he says, for we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. what? Being whores, having this whorish spirit. Verse 12. Now them that are such we command and exhort by our Lord, so our creator of salvation of JEHOVAH, that with quietness, we see that quietness is popping up again, that they work and eat their own bread. So we need to learn our own doctrine. But we rather be busybodies. We into any and every other thing than what we need to be into. But he said right here, we need to learn our own doctrine, meaning we need to stay tied to this Bible. We need to stay tied to this book of remembrance, not sitting there trying to go out and join to other things that ain't got nothing to do with us. But we want to be tied to it. But he telling us right here, when we go to Luke, we're gonna hit Luke chapter 8. We're gonna hit verse 11 down to verse 14. He tells us right here, Luke chapter 8, starting at verse 11. He says, now the parable is this: the seed is the word of God. See, this seed, this word, is what was planted in our hearts. But we'll see what happened. Verse 12. Those by the wayside are they that hear, there cometh the devil, so that evil man, and taketh away the word out of their hearts, lest they should believe and be saved. Verse 13. They on the rock are they which, when they hear, receive the word with joy, and these have no root, which for a while believe, and in time of temptation falleth away. So this is what we was talking about. We'll sit there, we'll be diligent, we'll be going hard for weeks, for months, even for a couple years, and then over time, we change. We just start to decrease in that passion, that desire that we have, because we get caught up in something else. Something else takes our attention away, and we get idle. This is what happens. And that which fell among thorns. So these thorns are these weeds, these tares are they, which when they have heard, go forth and are choked with what? The cares and the riches and pleasures of this life, and bring no fruit. So don't bring no works to perfection. Why? Because we being busybodies. We being whores, being caught up with the cares of this world. Because we want to live like the world. We want to live like everybody else. We getting caught up in all these distractions, whatever it is that's consuming our focus. We worried about so much in this life. Oh, I got to take care of this. I got to take care of that. I got to handle this. I got to handle that. But not realizing that it means nothing when we neglecting to put in the work where it really counts. We sitting there not setting aside that time that we supposed to for JEHOVAH when we should, being our first and main priority. See, you could be out here being the hardest working man or hardest working woman in the world, stressing yourself out every day for $1, but then ain't got nothing to offer when it comes to understanding what's required of you to receive life. Shoot, you done got your reward already. But then, and then not understanding what it is, what our actual purpose is here on what we supposed to be doing. We don't know. A lot of us don't know because we too deep into this world. So what we have to do, we have to put up this fight in this war, this battle, this struggle that we're in, providing that we're actually seeking a spot into the kingdom of God. Because if we don't put up this fight, we're going to lose and suffer poverty, being unfruitful, being barren with no knowledge. So we don't want to go through this life like that. And then having to pay for it later and suffer for eternity. We don't want that. Because he tell us right here. Let's go to 2nd Esdras. We're going to go 2nd Esdras. Chapter 16. 2nd Esdras, chapter 16. And verse 77. He tells us right here, he says, woe be unto them that are bound with their sins and covered with their iniquities, like as a field that is covered over with bushes, and a path thereof covered with thorns, that no man may travel through. Now let's go to Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 24. And we're going to hit verse 30 down to verse 34. And it says, I went by the field of the slothful, and by the vineyard of the man void of understanding. And lo, it was all grown over with thorns, and nettles had covered the face thereof, and the stone wall thereof was broken down. Then I saw and considered it well, and looked upon it, and received instruction. Verse 33, yet a little sleep, and a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travaileth, and thy want as an armed man. So this is what's going to happen. This is what it looks like when we allow this behavior to build up in us. This field that's covered with thorns, being wrapped up in our own bad habits, and it's just steady pricking us. It's just steady pricking us left and right. And we steady allowing it to grow and increase more and more. This is what we allowing to happen. But we got to be able to break this bad cycle of what's going on within us. Because he tell us, this is what we need to do. He tell us right here exactly what we need to do in Jeremiah chapter 4. He tell us right here in verse 3. He tell us, he says, for thus saith the Spirit of God to the men of Judah and Jerusalem, break up your fallow ground. So this is what we need to do. Let's see what that's talking about. This follow. He tell us right here. What? Idle, resting, barren, unfruitful. A clarification we see what? It's uncultivated. It's unproductive. So this is what we need to break up. We got to break up this fallow ground, this idle ground, this unfruitful ground, this unfruitful body, this idle body, because this is us. We got to break this up and sow not among the thorns. So we got to get these weeds and these tares out from among us, from within us. We have to remove these distractions from our hearts and stop making up excuses for what we doing and why we doing it, but instead just take responsibility and obligate ourselves to the word of God. We can't keep saying, oh, we can't just keep, we'll sit there and we'll say, oh, I know I'm not doing what I need to do, or I know what I need to do. We say stuff like that, but we still not doing it. So what profit is it? What profit is it to sit there and say, you know what you need to do? I know I'm not doing what I need to do, but that means nothing when you're not actually going to do it. That's vain. That's unproductive, because that's just talk. We need action behind the words that we're speaking. Because he even tell us right here. We even tell us right here when we go over here to James. When we go to James chapter 2, we're going to start right here in verse 17 and verse 18. He tells us right here in James chapter 2, verse 17, he says, even so faith, if it have not works, is dead, being alone. Verse 18, yea, a man may say, thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. Why? Because we can say and believe all day long what we know, what we capable of. Oh, I know if I just do the work, if I just do this, oh, I know what I can do. I know what I need to do. But that's just that means nothing if we not actually doing the work to show for it. Then what? Can faith save you? He even tell us this. When we go to verse 14, he said, what do it profit My brethren, though a man say he have faith and have not works, can faith save him? He's asking us this. So just saying we know what we need to do, or just talking about what we need to do, doesn't profit anything. But we need works behind it. Think about that field that's full of those thorns and bushes. This is just full of thorns and bushes. You can't even see through or pass through it. It's just all over the place. That's what it looks like when we always saying and talking about what we need to do, but we not actually doing it. That's just, I'm gonna talk a good game. I'm gonna talk a good game in front of people. That's just appearing righteous outwardly, just as a Pharisee, being a hypocrite, making ourselves look good on the outside, but within we got issues that we need to correct. That's just like somebody saying, "Oh, I know I need to go outside and cut the grass. I know I need to do this and that." But you still sitting in on the inside of the house, looking outside the window, looking at all the weeds growing up, but you're not willing to do anything. You just want to talk about it. See, we'll say that, but not actually doing the work. So this is the issue. So what we need to do is to be able to cultivate this field within us so that we'll be able to produce good fruit. So guess what? We got to cast this slothfulness to the side. We got to get rid of it. It has to go. So when we go over here, we're going to go to Ephesians. We're going to hit Ephesians chapter 5, and we're going to hit verse 11. And he tells us right here, he says, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. So correct them. So we have to correct our thoughts. We have to correct our thoughts. We have to correct our actions. Every time that thought comes in that you just want to kick back and chill and be lazy and just do whatever, knowing that we ain't done no work or we haven't been productive all day, then we got to kill that. You can't have no fellowship with that. That's unfruitful. We got to get rid of that because we already know what the outcome is going to be if we allow those things to dwell in our temples. We see it right here, as we seen it earlier, but we'll even see it right here. What's going to happen? Because JEHOVAH, he not playing with us. He is not going to play with us if we want to sit there and do that. Because he tells us right here in Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 15. He said right here, slothfulness casteth into a deep sleep. He's not playing with us. This is what's going to happen to us. And our idle soul, this idle spirit, shall suffer hunger. You're going to be in lack. You're going to be lacking knowledge and lacking understanding, not receiving any nourishment. Poor, broke spiritually. This is what's going to happen to us if we don't get rid of this type of behavior. This is what we dealing with. So we don't want this deep sleep to come upon us. We want our flesh to be in that deep sleep, not our spirit. So what we need to do is starve our flesh from what it desires, not our souls from the things that's needful for it, which is the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding from JEHOVAH, because we need that more than anything. Because he tells us right here, we're going to hit Proverbs over here. We're going to hit Proverbs chapter 13. Okay. Proverbs chapter 13. And we're going to hit verse 4. He tells us right here. He says, the soul of the sluggard desireth and have nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. So we got to be diligent. We got to be devoted, because that sluggard is going to desire knowledge, but he ain't going to be able to get it because he ain't going to work for it, but he going to desire it. It makes no sense to we sitting there. You want knowledge, but not doing the work for it. That's insane. It makes no sense. But this is what I was doing. This is some of the things that it makes no sense. Remember, he said, a man that don't work, don't eat. He don't learn. That's the issue. So let's go to Sirach. We're going to go to Sirach, chapter 40. We're going to Sirach, chapter 40. We're going to hit verse 28. We're going to hit verse 28 and verse 29. Sirach chapter 40, starting at verse 28. He says, my son, lead not a beggar's life, for better it is to die than to beg. The life of him that dependeth on another man's table. So you gonna depend on another man's abundance is not to be counted for a life, for he polluteth himself with other men's meats or other men's doctrine. But a wise man, well nurtured, will beware thereof. So we need to be able to put in our own work, not sitting there trying to rely on what somebody else is not doing. We can't sit there and rely on somebody else's work, trying to eat off another man's table. We can't be sitting there trying to be dependent on another, because it's one thing if you just trying to get counsel and advice on something that you're looking at. For example, let's say you doing a study on something, but by no means should we ever expect anybody to just sit there and do the work for us. That's why it can be an issue when people will ask certain questions like, oh, what does word mean? What does that mean? What does this mean? What did that mean? But we'll do that without even presenting anything or doing any type of proper study on anything. But we want to reap the benefits of it, what we're going to get. But we're not showing any effort on anything. So you can't expect someone to do the work for you, and you just want to eat from it without showing any type of diligent effort to search out to understand it first. So this is what we can't do. We can't lead this beggar's life, which this beggar is actually something we are probably going to end up doing a deeper study on this later. But we just got to make sure that we have to beware of this type of behavior. So now let's go to Psalms. We're going to go to Psalms chapter 119. And actually, we're going to hit right here. Psalms chapter 119 and verse 1. And he tells us right here. He says, blessed, wisdom is given, are the undefiled in the way, who live in the law of the Spirit of God. Sirach chapter 33. Sirach chapter 33. And we're going to hit verse 1. Sirach chapter 33 and verse 1. And it says, there shall no evil happen unto him that feareth, that desireth the Creator. But in temptation, even again, he will deliver him. So this is why it's so important to why we must trust in Jehovah, even in times of temptation, at all times. When our flesh wants to rise up and we have those urges to give in to how we feeling. So if we feeling sluggish and lazy, but we have to fight that off. And we can always overcome the battle, but because we have to remember who it is that's fighting with us in this battle. He tells us this. When we go to Deuteronomy chapter 20, he tells us right here in Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 4. He make it clear to us. He says, for the Spirit of God, your guide, is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies, to save you. So we already know who this enemy is that we're fighting against. This idle soul, this slothful spirit that's trying to take dominion over us. And we have to remember and have assurance that JEHOVAH will fight for us as long as we hold on to him. Now, I want to show an example of those who weren't slothful in business. See, these guys that weren't slothful, but they took care of work. They put in work and they went out to war against their enemies with courage, knowing that JEHOVAH was with them. So as we look at this, we just want to keep this in mind. And this is the same mindset that we should have at all times. And he tell us this. We're going to see it when we go to, we're going to go 2 Maccabees. 2 Maccabees, chapter 10. 2 Maccabees, chapter 10. We're going to take it all the way down from verse 24. We're going to take it from verse 24 all the way to 38. Because we just want to see exactly what happened here, so we can get the example on how we need to be. Not being slothful in our business and our work, but putting in that work and going hard for the truth. He tells us in 2 Maccabees chapter 10, starting at verse 24, he says, now Timotheus, whom the Jews, the followers of Christ, have overcome before, when he had gathered a great multitude of foreign forces and horses, so all these doctrines, out of Asia, not a few, came as though he would take Jewry. So he going to take these land of the Jews by force of arms. Verse 25. But when he drew near, they that were with Maccabeus turned themselves to pray unto God, and sprinkled earth upon their heads, and girded their loins with sackcloth, and fell down at the foot of the altar, and besought him to be merciful to them, and to be an enemy to their enemies, and an adversary unto their adversaries, as the law declareth. So after the prayer, they took their weapons, and went on further from the city. And when they drew near to their enemies, they kept by themselves. Verse 28. Now the sun being newly risen, they joined both together, the one part having together with their virtue their refuge also unto the Lord for a pledge of their success and victory, the other side making their rage leader of their battle. Verse 29. But when the battle waxed strong, there appeared unto the enemies from heaven 5 comely men upon horses, with bridles of gold, and 2 of them led the Jews, the followers of Christ, and took Maccabeus betwixt them, and covered him on every side weapons, and kept him safe, but shot arrows and lightnings against the enemies, so that being confounded with blindness and full of trouble, they were killed. Verse 31. And there was slain of the footmen 20,500, and 600 horsemen. As for Timotheus himself, he fled into a very strong hold called Gara, where Chereas was governor. Verse 33. But they that were with Maccabeus laid siege against the fortress courageously 4 days. And they that were within, trusting to the strength of the place, blasphemed exceedingly and uttered wicked words. Nevertheless, upon the 5th day early, 20 young men of Maccabeus' company, inflamed with anger because of the blasphemies, assaulted the wall manly, and with a fierce courage killed all that they met withal. Otherwise, Others likewise ascended after them, whilst they were bruised, busied with them that were within, burnt the towers, and kindling fires, burnt the blasphemers alive. And others broke open the gates, and having received the rest of the army, took the city. Verse 37, and killed Timotheus that was hid in a certain pit, and Charius his brother, with Apollophanes. When this was done, they praised the Creator with psalms and thanksgiving, who had done so great things for Israel and given them the victory. So this is exactly what we're looking for. This victory, this deliverance to overcome our adversities, our adversaries. But in order to do that, we must be fervent towards the Creator. That's the only way. And we have to humble ourselves and trust in our instructions that He has given to us. As we sing, they didn't turn away and do nothing. They turned towards God and sought Him out and went forward to battle and prevailed mightily. Just as we must seek JEHOVAH's guidance in our battles and arm ourselves with His truth to defend us and to protect us in our battles. As we can see, when we go over here to Ephesians, he tells us in Ephesians chapter 6, he tells us in Ephesians chapter 6, now we're hit verse 13 down to verse 18. He tell you right here, Ephesians chapter 6, starting at verse 13, he says, wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, having on the breastplate of righteousness, and having your feet, your desires, shod with preparation of the gospel, the message of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. So these are the things that we need to deck ourselves with as our coverings. Not the carnal things of this world, not trying to look good on the outside, but we need to make sure that we are clean within, making sure our spiritual body is protected and defended. So now, let's go to 1 Peter. We can go 1 Peter chapter 4, and we're going to hit verse 1 and verse 2. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 1 and verse 2. And it says, for as much then as Christ, JEHOVAH, have suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind. For he that have suffered in the flesh have ceased from sin, that he no longer shall live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of God. This is what we have to do. Because he tell us, we going to live to the will of God, we got to trust in God. He tell us in 2 Ezra chapter 16, verse 75 and 76. He tell us right here, be ye not afraid, neither doubt, for God is your guide, and the guide of them who keep my commandments and precepts, saith the Lord God. Let not your sins weigh you down, so and let your iniquities lift themselves up, because we can't allow this laziness and this idleness to weigh us down. We can't allow this to happen. We got to overcome these things, and whenever it tries to rise up, we got to kick it right back down. This is what we got to do. Cause when we go over here to 2 Chronicles chapter 7, he tell us right here, verse 13 and verse 14. He tell us, he says, providing I shut up heaven that there be no rain, so no knowledge, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people. Verse 14, providing my people, which are called by my way, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land. So we got to remember that this land is us. We must humble ourselves and dedicate ourselves to JEHOVAH and genuinely seek him out daily. Only then can we receive the necessary cure that we need to overcome this, because we have to always keep in mind what we're looking for, and that's to be in 100% agreement with JEHOVAH. This is what we want to be able to do. So now we're going to pull these last texts when we go over here to Ezekiel chapter 34. And we're going to hit verse 25 down to verse 30. In Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 25 down to verse 30. And it says, and I will make with them a covenant of peace, this agreement of peace, and will cause the evil beasts to cease out of the land, so from the people, and they shall dwell safely in the wilderness and sleep, so rest in the woods. And I will make them and the places round about my hill a blessing, and I will cause the shower to come down in his season, and there should be showers of blessings. So this abundance of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that he's going to give. Verse 27, and the tree, so the elder of the field shall yield her fruits, so the works, and the earth, the people, shall yield her increase, and they shall be safe in their land, and shall know that I am the Spirit of God, when I have broken the bands of their yoke and delivered them out of the hand, the power of those that serve themselves of them. Verse 28, and they shall no more be a prey to the heathen. So we're not going to be a prey to the unbelievers, this being defiled. Neither shall the beasts of the land devour them, but they shall dwell safely, and none shall make them afraid. Verse 29, and I will raise up for them a plant of renown, and they shall be no more consumed with hunger in the land, neither bear the shame of the heathen anymore. Thus shall they know that I am the Spirit of God, their guide, am with them, and that they, even the house of Israel, of JEHOVAH's servants, are my people, saith the Creator Yahweh. So, with that, hopefully, this teaching served as some encouragement and exhortation, and as always, a warning and instruction to us to understand that this idle spirit that we can have can be a very, very dangerous thing if we allow it to take hold of us. As we seen, being idle, being slothful, and just being plain out lazy, it ain't no different from just being filth in the eyes of God. So that's something that we have to recognize and come to the realization of, and understand that if we allow ourselves to be that way, then we have to face the consequences of it. We don't want to fall into that deep sleep or receive that spirit of delusion. So we got to remember, if we stay in that way, the more and more we'll be inching closer and closer to death of our spirits. The more and more we allow ourselves to go days without putting in the necessary work, that's actually the more we allow ourselves to even go through the day without keeping our minds in the Bible, that's the more that we're starving our spirits. And we're doing it to ourselves willingly when we allow that to happen, which is showing a lack of dedication and devotion to JEHOVAH. So we already seen that those that choose to be disobedient and decide to hold on to other things, what it leads to. We don't want that spirit of slumber to come upon us, and then we end up missing the kingdom. So we just need to make sure that we stay consistent and we stay encouraged at all times and always putting in the work and staying diligent, that we stay in the lessons and continue to seek JEHOVAH in all things that we do. So with that, I appreciate everyone for coming out and tuning in with me. This was Deacon Ernest James coming out of Durham, North Carolina, King James Bible University. And I would like to say, Shalom.
Wow.